Hi there, my grieving friends. I have a thought provoking question for you today. And the question is, what is the story you're telling yourself about your grief? And what I mean by that is, are you telling yourself things like, grief lasts forever, there's no healing from it, there's no end to it? Or, once a widow, always a widow? Or even, there's no coming back after the loss of a child? Do you believe these things to be true in your case? If you do, and you would like that to change, I wonder if you could stick around for just a moment. I have something I would like to read to you. I'm going to read a few excerpts from my book, which is a memoir called Through Grief Colored Glasses, A Life Reinvented by Devastating Loss. And this is a book that I have written and published for you all to benefit from. I'm sharing my story of three significant losses, both of my children and my husband. Two of these losses were suicides, and one was an expected death, a cancer death, where I hospiced my daughter myself in my home and, held her while she died. So I've been through it a few times. I've been through multiple versions of grief, and it's all in here for you to glean some wisdom from. And I really do hope it helps. I'm getting lots of reports from folks that it is helping them immensely get over some hurdles. One of my missions is to kind of debunk all of these erroneous beliefs that we have been conditioned to carry in our lives, things like no getting over the loss of a child. If I were to take that on as a belief, I would have just crawled back under the covers and never came out and lived my life again. It's like, how can a parent go on after losing a child? I had to learn how to fight back against those types of beliefs. So, in my book, in chapter 1, titled Don't Believe Everything They Say, I am talking directly to my son about these types of belief systems. They were preventing me from moving forward in my grief by holding me back. I can see you rolling your eyes, Adam. I remember how much it annoyed you when I used quotes, euphemisms, and old wives' tales to teach you about life during our conversations as mother and son. I didn't know it then, but later, after your death and my resulting journey of self discovery, I would become obsessed with that old habit. Why? Because I discovered their value as tools to help train my brain to believe what I wanted it to, because that little revelation that my brain will believe anything I tell it was the key to the kingdom. Now I see you rolling your eyes, outright laughing, because it seems like you can't even finish a paragraph without tossing an old saying into the mix. Alas, that's when the real roller coaster ride began. The journey to root out old beliefs that play out in my subconscious without my awareness of what kind of havoc they were wreaking in the background was a slippery slope, to be sure, but a labor of love and necessity nonetheless. For I simply would not accept the common belief that there is no coming back from something like this. I had to believe a full recovery from this painful experience we call grief was indeed possible, and I made it my personal mission to prove it could be done. One of the first things I became aware of was, of course, the widespread belief it's unnatural for a child to die before their parents. But there I was with a child to bury. My brain couldn't come to terms with that statement, couldn't find any truth in it. Yet today we have come to believe it. I can't tell you how many people actually said those words to me after your death. I could never figure out how it was supposed to make me feel. I had survived the unimaginable. The worst atrocity life could dole out had been given to me, according to those in the know. And so I wondered, was I being asked to feel like the chosen one or something? Since this thing where children die first is such an unnatural event? Then there's the strength everyone talks about. People were telling me how strong I was because my kid had died by his own hand on Mother's Day. I could never survive that. You're so strong, they'd say, fawning over me like some kind of a celebrity. Again, I'm not sure if those comments were supposed to shore me up and make me feel larger than life, but what they actually did was put pressure on me to act strong around other people. Because they clearly expected it of me, and Lord knows a people pleaser like I was at the time would be more than happy to give the masses what they wanted. But somewhere deep within my sore brain, which was limping along with its circuits fried from the shock of your violent death, who hangs himself anyway? We'll need to unpack that one at some point, son, another day. I was able to push back against that one statement. It's unnatural for a child to die before their parents. Well, your method of death may not have been natural, but other people lose children to disease, accidents, and even horrendous events like murder every day. So it is indeed a naturally occurring event. For us as a society to hold on to such erroneous belief only sets us all up for unnecessary hardship in the future, should we ever have to experience such a loss ourselves. Why do we all bury our heads in the sand when it comes to the ever present and commonly occurring subject of death? I hope you'll let that question sink in. I hope you'll look within and start asking yourself. And I'll give you an example of how you can work with this process. Grief never goes away. Okay? We can't unsay that or unbelieve it, can we? But we can add a little caveat to it, can't we? Let's change it a little bit, tweak it ever so slightly. Grief never goes away, but it does get softer and easier to carry. Let that sink in. Next time your brain says this grief will never go away, immediately follow that thought with, but it does get softer and easier to carry. This is how you stretch your brain around a new belief. You cannot just unbelieve what you already believe and believe something new. You can't replace your thoughts. You've got to stretch them. You've got to train your brain to believe something different. Once a widow, always a widow. That kind of sets us up for never finding love again, doesn't it? And that's okay if that's what you want. If you're content, having your wearing your wedding ring for the rest of your life and being presented as so and so's widow, and if that helps you feel like you have an identity and you're secure in that, then why shouldn't you feel that way? Why shouldn't you behave that way? There's nothing wrong with that. There's also nothing wrong with the widow who wants more for herself. And I say to you, if you want more for yourself, once a widow, always a widow becomes, but that doesn't mean I'll never find love again. I will always be Leo's widow. He was my husband. He died while we were still married. That's the name, the label that society has given me. However, I'm also a single woman. I'm Vicky. It doesn't define me, the widowhood. I'm open to what will ever happen, and I invite new love into my life. Here's the one people push back against the most. There's no coming back after the loss of a child. How am I going to flip that one, huh? Here it is. There's no coming back after losing a child. However, I see other people surviving, so maybe I can too. Maybe I can too. That's all it takes. That's all I'm asking. Maybe you can too. Start telling that story to yourself. Your brain will believe it. It'll believe anything you tell it often enough. Yeah, true story.